You hear that? You hear that? That's special. There's a lot of lions, tigers, and bears, but there ain't but one Razorback.
McFadden, say goodbye. Darren McFadden, 80 yards, touchdown.
Fly ball, deep left field. Out of here. Madden for maybe the win. Oh, the follow is good. Arkansas in overtime. I think he just made SportsCenter again. Arkansas is in hog heaven. They won the first ever national championship.
All I want you to do tonight is play your best. Don't worry about making a mistake. You can make a mistake, that's fine, as long as you're going 100 miles an hour.
New OC, familiar face. Welcome into episode 54 of the Pig Weekly Podcast, your weekly source for all things Arkansas Razorbacks. Episode 54 is brought to you by Homefield, home of premium vintage collegiate apparel. Go check them out today and get all your Razorback needs there. T-shirts, hats, pullovers, you name it, they got it. Go check it out. They got some fantastic stuff. Like I said last week, we're here around holiday season, so go on, find a fantastic Razorback gift for a family member. Use that promo code Variety Sports in all caps to receive 15% off your order, and go check them out today. And we'll jump right in. And if you missed our emergency pod earlier in the week, go check that out where we sat down with former wide receiver Javante Herndon to talk about the new OC that, like I said, familiar to Arkansas fans across the country, with Bobby Petrino being back in Arkansas on the hill, taking control of this offense that was abysmal this past season. And hopefully he can turn things around with his X's and O's and his offensive-minded genius that he has. So go check out that where we sat down and broke that down with Javante Herndon. But with that, we'll jump into Week 13, where Arkansas's final game of the season fell to Missouri 48-14. Not surprised by this loss. I mean, I've kind of thought it was either going to be a close game or it was going to be a blowout similar to this. We got one of the two right here. Not much to talk about here. Is there anything specific you want to highlight before we dive into stats?
Not necessarily. I mean, this game was – I think we had a shot at this game until KJ got hurt. We can cover a little bit more of that. But then because he was going to be able to run the ball a little bit, you could tell that he was kind of playing angry and wanting to run down the throat a little bit where he could, where he had to. That was going to be what it took to stay in this game. I still don't know if we would have won, frankly. It just our offense was too up and down, and defense was on the field too much. You can what if yourself to death, but Missouri's legit this year. They're a very good team. They're very likely going to make it to a New Year's Six bowl, which is impressive, and props to them for that. They've got some great players. They're a fun team to watch. I hate to say that. I hate them. But they're actually a very fun team to watch, the way they play the ball or spread the ball around. They're kind of a balanced approach. They throw the ball quite a bit, but then they have a really good running game with that Cody Schrader kid, who's kind of been a Cinderella story this year in college football world. So they're a fun team to watch, and I definitely give them a lot of credit for the way they played in this game. But overall, like you said, the stats are a little wacky, obviously with KJ going down early in it. So it's nice in a way to maybe not have a ball game after the way this year went, to try to have to kind of prepare for and somewhat be excited for. And we were able to go ahead and just kind of flush the season to an extent, learn from some things, and then go ahead and move on with hiring a new offensive coordinator and set the sights on next year and what we've got to do to fix some of the problems that we had. A lot of learning moments from the entire year from this game as well. So a lot of things to look back at, but then a lot of things to kind of maybe try to forget as well.
Yeah, great take there. Agree with all that. A lot of things to learn from Pittman, going out making that splash hire that kind of I think this program needed, bringing a guy that is, like we mentioned with Enos, but I feel like it's a different situation, that is familiar with Arkansas, had success as the head hog here, having back-to-back 10-win seasons with, in 2010, winning 10 games, 2011 winning 11 games. So he had this program in a really good spot before everything went down. We're not going to dive into that. You all know what happened. It's a running joke around in Arkansas. But
get that man Harley.
we might need to keep him away from those. But anyway, he knows how to win. He knows how to win at Arkansas. So I think that'll be a great asset to Pittman to, really help him develop more into his head coaching career. But we'll just jump in with stats here. Like Seth mentioned, KJ Jefferson got hurt on that first drive of the game where, he only attempted 2 passes, completed them both for 2 yards, had 2 carries for 15 yards. That second carry got rolled up on. It looked worse than it was. He went down with his knee. My first thought was, oh, no, not an ACL in the last game of the season. Luckily, Pittman said after the game, hyperextended his knee, so nothing super serious. I love that for KJ. But this game gave you your first really good full game peek at Jacoby Criswell and what we could have next year. Completed 12 of 20 passes for 60% completion percentage. He threw for 96 yards, carried the ball 15 times for negative 23 yards, but don't let that skew your, idea of his rushing ability just because we had a terrible O-line this year. That's just the facts. And he was having to run for his life, getting sacked multiple times. So he can actually run the ball really well. It's just this doesn't show you that in a sense from statistical purposes.
Yeah, I was actually pretty pleased with his effort just from what I saw on the field. You could tell he was kind of wanting to play hard. It was just a hard game to play in, if that's the right way to put it, honestly. Especially kind of once it started to get a little bit ugly. At one point, I believe it was 41-0. And you could tell the guys were just out there just playing with the love of the game at that point. And you could see that from Criswell. So I did appreciate that. However, it's hard to say what even kind of quarterback he is. It didn't even really feel like he was able to run plays how he would have liked to, just the way he was having to run for his life every single snap. So that was kind of tough, and I don't think anything we really saw from Criswell, and heck, half the stuff we saw from KJ this year just didn't feel like what they're actually capable of as far as player level talent. So I'm curious to see what adjustments are made in the offseason, obviously, and we've spoken to it in previous episodes and things of that nature, but there has to be some needs addressed on the offensive line to make quarterbacks' lives a little bit better and actually be able to utilize these guys to their full capabilities, because we obviously couldn't with KJ this year. It wasn't there like it was in the years past. And then I think it was, the same way when Jacoby was even in a couple of plays early on in the year. And then obviously this Missouri game here, I don't really ever think we got a true glimpse of him, frankly.
Yeah, it's hard to give him a fair evaluation when he was playing behind a terrible offensive line. And that goes for, several different, positions here, even with running backs. When you can't have any holes opening up, it's hard to gauge how good, you could stick anybody back there and they're not going to have much success when there's no holes opening up, or even your receivers whenever, you barely have time for the quarterback to throw the ball. So they're not going to even get to run their route. They're having to kind of ad-lib freestyle their routes based on if their quarterback is being flushed out of the pocket. They just have to get open and all of these different things. So that offensive line will affect several different aspects of the game. And so, hopefully Pittman, being the coach he is, the offensive line genius, he'll go out there this offseason like he did last year with the defense, go out there, get some guys and make some big changes that will really be able to help next year. And so you jump over to our rushing stats. Isaiah Augustive, looks like we have a potential star in the making here. You've got a young running back, his freshman season, come out, have his first 100-yard game last week against FIU, come out this week, have 15 carries for 80 yards, averaging 5.3 yards per carry and getting his first touchdown of his collegiate career. You see Dominic Johnson kind of getting back into the fold here with 5 carries for 55 yards, averaging 11 yards per carry. And then AJ Green, kind of, he's been what he's been this year, not fantastic. Like we said, no holes getting opened up. He's really more of a speed guy, not a between the tackles guy. And so it's hard to get a guy like him out to the edge whenever, you snap the ball and defense is already bearing down on you. So, you saw glimpses what he did in the BYU game. He was able to break to the edge, and it was just a foot race from there where he won that pretty easily. But I think you got to look at Isaiah Augustive next year, whether Rocket's back, Dominion should be back, after that recovery from his torn meniscus. But you could have another good 1-2 punch here with a guy like Augustive that's quick, but also can, run hard, fight for those extra yards. So it'll be interesting to see what our running back room will look like next season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I think at this point, with the way the Petrino hire is going to land, and with his potential to bring, maybe guys from A&M with him, if there's a couple of guys he wants to bring along, I'm not necessarily opposed to that. I'd rather keep some of our Arkansas boys here, but we'll cover a little bit more news on the transfer portal later. But there are so many options available right now on the way that our entire offense could look next year, whether it's players, scheming, I mean, everything that from the top down. It's hard to say, who really even needs to stick around to build off of for next year or not. It's definitely going to be a whirlwind of an off season, learning all the ins and outs of who's going to be around, who's going to be available, who wants to stay, who doesn't want to stay. There's all kinds of things going on social media already of people saying, transfer is not an option and all that kind of stuff, which is great to see that those players buy in. You already got some guys to jump out. And then I'm sure there'll be some players that, you're going to have to pull their scholarship from them for maybe somebody else that Petrino wants to bring in or something of that nature. And so there'll be some tough decisions, I'm sure, down the line. And I'm curious to see how all that's going to play out. I'm excited for it. I just wish the best for all these kids. And, to your point, though, I do think that you've got some serious talent in this running back room that does deserve a place for next year. I mean, there's no arguing that at all in my mind. But I am excited to kind of see how that fleshes out.
Yeah, very true. And great takes. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with now that we've got Petrino back into the fold, what he does recruiting. Kind of, do we go after some different guys? Do we try to get some guys to flip, just based on what he could bring to this program and, telling these guys, hey, come play here and you'll help us turn this around a little bit faster than, what we normally would. And you can do that a little bit quicker via the transfer portal. And so we'll hit on that in a minute. But as we finish some stats here, receiving for this game, not a ton here. You had Andrew Armstrong, 4 receptions, 40 yards, and a touchdown. Tesla, 2 receptions for 34 yards. Behind that, not a ton there because Criswell was being harassed every play, and it was hard for him to get the ball out. And so you flip over to the defensive side of the ball, your top players here, Chris Paul Jr., 7 total tackles, 5 solo, 1 tackle for loss. Jaden Johnson, 7 total tackles, 4 solo. Antonio Greer, 6 total tackles, 4 solo. And then Hudson Clark rounded out with 5 total tackles, 5 solo, and 1 tackle for loss. Special teams, no pick sixes, nothing like that this game, unfortunately. Would have loved to have a couple of those. That would have been very beneficial. But unfortunately, things didn't go that way. You look at your penalties, 7 for 58 yards still not cleaned up a ton. You're still giving up 58 yards of penalty yardage that, with some more discipline and maybe better scheming in a sense, you could have cut down on some of those penalties. So, just this year, like Seth said at the beginning, you kind of go back and flush it, learn from a few things, but there's not a ton to take away from this year besides go out and fix the offensive line. And that solves probably a decent chunk of your problems. If we're being honest with just the talent, like maybe the scheming wasn't right with Enos and KJ, but if you have a better offensive line that blocks, you probably win 2-3 more games easily. Yeah,
I agree with that. I mean, I think there was some mesh points that didn't connect there between Enos and KJ. But there was, I mean, you look early on in the year when the talent level was a little bit different on our first 2 games. The offensive line wasn't great even then, and we could tell. But they were still, good enough to have some good plays here and there. And KJ looked decent on a couple of those throws. There were some nice deep balls, especially in week 1. He kind of threw the ball all over the place, but it just – whenever the competition level ramped up and he didn't have that much time back there, he couldn't make reads quick enough for what Dan was asking him to do, and it just never worked after that.
Yeah, so hopefully we see a different pace next year with what we've got coming in with Bobby T coming back. What kind of offense he gets, and brings in with when he was here before, that high-flying pro-style attack. But you got to remember, he also coached a guy named Lamar Jackson, and I think he's pretty good right now. So he can coach with different style players and quarterbacks between him and, you have your Ryan Malletts and your Tyler Wilsons. That's not super mobile, but a more pocket type style quarterbacks so he has the knowledge and the ability to mold his offense to whatever players he's got on his roster. So that'll be good to see how he meshes his offensive style with what we will have for next season. And
Couldn't
so
have
as
said it
we,
better myself.
yeah. So as we round out week 13, SEC results around the league. Ole Miss beats Mississippi State 17-7 in the Egg Bowl. Kentucky beats Louisville 38-31. A little bit of surprise here. Kentucky got up for their rivalry game and knocked off the undefeated Louisville team.
They had one loss.
They had one loss. So a highly ranked Louisville team that will go into the ACC championship against Florida State and see what they can do there. You have LSU beating Texas A&M 42-30. And the shocking game of the week to me, Alabama is beating Auburn 27-24. Not shocking the fact that Bama won, but how they won on a last-second, heave to the end zone at the end of the game with just near under 2 minutes left, and they pull it out. It's another Saban miracle, if you will, that they were able to take down Auburn in the Iron Bowl.
Dude, it was wild. If fans out there, if y'all haven't seen what all happened in this game in the last 6 minutes of it, go back, try to watch it. The Auburn had this game, honestly. They dropped a punt that Alabama was able to take advantage of. But then Auburn's defense bowed up and actually got a couple of negative plays in a row to literally make it 4th and 31, 4th and goal, but from the 31-yard line. That is a miracle. But anyways, that was an awesome finish to a game that's going to be talked about for a long time. Seems like the Iron Bowl just somehow always has the weird stuff happen, man. It's crazy some of the history that game has.
Yeah, the next chapter of the Iron Bowl was wrote with an exclamation point there. And so you move on. Tennessee beats Vanderbilt 48-24. Florida State beats Florida 24-15. So they're starting to find their rhythm without Jordan Travis, as he went down a couple weeks ago. Hate to see that for him, ended his collegiate career. But, their backup is still able to come out there and lead this team to win. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles the ACC championship game, and barring any results of that, maybe what happens in the college football playoffs if they remain undefeated and win the ACC. And you have Georgia beating Georgia Tech 31-15. And then as you round out everything, Clemson beats South Carolina 16-7. And so that brings us into the portal season segment. As it's that time of the year, guys are entering the portal. We're going to figure out who's staying, who's leaving. And so far, Arkansas has 4 players in the transfer portal so far. You've got defensive back Jalen Lewis, a surprise here, wide receiver Sam Mbake. He had high praise in fall camp and was going to be a good piece of this offense, and kind of had that knee injury that in fall camp that really kind of derailed his season. And then I think, to me, the biggest surprise overall, you have linebacker Chris Pupal decide to enter the portal a few days ago, followed up by today. Linebacker Jordan Crook entered the portal. So you've got 4 guys, two that would have been starters and some that seen significant playing time. Not sure what made them kind of make this decision. They didn't necessarily like the scheming, or quite frankly, I think we talked about before the show, we suck this year and we don't know what next year is going to be like. So do you take your chance going somewhere else that maybe could have a better season and give you better notoriety for the NFL or whatever it may be? So these guys could change their mind and come back with the change in coaching staff here. Maybe that could change some minds and we won't be as bad next year. Or maybe they just still continue on their path. We'll have to see. But we wish these guys the best luck anywhere they go, even though, they won't be playing for Arkansas. They were once a Razorback, so we need to support these guys. And then Arkansas portal commits. So Pittman's already started addressing those needs in the offensive line, as he went out and got the number 1 offensive line in the transfer portal right now with Keyshawn Blackstock. He is a transfer from Michigan State that was a starter for that Michigan State team halfway through the year up until their head coach got fired, and they got a 30-day window to decide to transfer. And so he decided he was going to find a new home. And Sam Pittman went out and got him. He's a former 4-star recruit. So this will definitely be beneficial for this offensive line next year as we kind of try to come in and revamp that line and give our quarterbacks more time in the pocket next season.
Yeah, I was excited about this one. We talked about it a little bit last week, I believe, but obviously, as soon as a pretty high level player went into the portal, even before the season was over, Pittman was making calls. He understands the need at hand. I mean, he knows that. Definitely nothing new there, and I think he's definitely the guy to make the corrections needed. Just hoping that some things fall our way, some pieces go into the puzzle just right, and maybe things can turn around next year. I don't think it's going to be a turnaround. We win 10 wins with Petrino now or something crazy in year one. But if we can show some drastic improvement, kind of get back to what it's felt like the path we were on prior to this season, I think that'll be a success. And that's all I'm really hoping for.
Yeah, very true. So like we said at the beginning of the episode, if you haven't checked out our emergency pod where we talked about the Bobby Petrino hiring with former wide receiver Javante Herndon, go check that out as well. Great stuff, great insight from him as he is a former player that played for Coach Petrino. And, part of it, don't want to give away too much, but he said he wouldn't be where he is at or, the player he was without him. So some great insights. So go take a listen over there. And so with that, we'll take a quick break and we'll bounce over to some Arkansas basketball news.
You know what I like? I like to be comfortable. I also love representing my favorite sports teams. And in the Clutch, I am able to have the best of both worlds. In the Clutch Apparel is your one-stop shop for all things sports. They have officially licensed gear from all your favorite teams and players from the NHL, MLB, NFL, and more. They have sports classic tees from yesteryear and beyond. Check out their full website in the link down below. When you enter the promo code Variety Sports, you get 10% off everything site-wide. Feel comfortable with your sports apparel and go over to their website now at intheclutch.com. And don't forget to use our code Variety Sports to get 10% off.
All right, we are back as Arkansas women's basketball took on UCA on November 20th, where they got the win 81-67. Leading scorers for Arkansas was none other than Talia Scott, paired with Saylor Poffenbarger, with both scoring 17 points. You had Samara Spencer follow that up with 16 points herself, and Miriam Dowda put up 14. Leading rebounders for Arkansas was Miriam Dowda with 8, followed by Saylor Poffenbarger with 6, and Talia Scott with 4. So got your guards getting in there, not only in the points, but with those rebounds as well. Got to love that. And then you jump over to their shooting. Arkansas shot 44.1% from the field, going 26 of 59, 37.5% from the three-point range, where they shot 9 of 24, and 74.1% from the free throw line, going 20 of 27. So this women's basketball team starting out with a pretty good season right now, and they're slowly starting to gel more together and could have the makings to have a pretty decent season for Coach Mike Neighbors.
Yeah, I felt like this was one of their most balanced games so far, where Talia Scott didn't necessarily have to drop a 30 bomb just to pull out a 5-point win. That sounds horrible, but realistically, I mean, it really was a very balanced approach. Shot the ball very well, or at least fairly well from all facets, which I thought was also, a fairly balanced approach. We didn't throw up just a ton of threes, which was a little bit uncharacteristic, which personally, I like that. Have that a little bit more of that rounded style. So to me, this was a very, very good game for the Lady Razorbacks. Kind of put a lot of pieces together and a lot of people got involved.
Yeah, and so it looks like they could have a pretty good season on hand. We'll see as they start taking on some higher level competition throughout the rest of the season. But as it stands right now, they are doing pretty well. And so now we'll jump over to Arkansas men's basketball, where they headed down to the Bahamas for the Battle for Atlantis Tournament, where on November 22nd, they took on Stanford in the first round, where an exciting game it was, as Arkansas won 77-74 in double overtime over a, very hard-nosed Stanford team that really kept in this game the entire game. Leading scorers for Arkansas were Tremont Mark with 25 points, followed by Trevor Mercier with 14 and Devo Davis with 10. Leading rebounders for Arkansas were Trevor Brazil with 17, followed by Chandler Lawson with 13, and Devo Davis with 6. Trevor Brazil broke a personal best with that 17 rebounds, so it was good for him to have a double-double there. Really helped Arkansas to win in this game. Arkansas shot the ball in this game 30% from the field, going 23 of 76, so 76 shots a lot for a game, but you got to consider this. You had 10 extra minutes of play with 10 minutes of overtime play. 26% from the three-point line, going 5 of 19, and then 78.8% from the free throw line, going 26 of 33. So not the best shooting here in this game, but enough to get the win here. You know, Tremont Mark really starting to feel himself in this season and really kind of show why Muss went out and got him a great two-way player that can bring the scoring ability, but also has some lockdown defense.
Yeah, no doubt about that. He's been a breath of fresh air, man. We'll talk a little bit more about it after a couple of these other game recaps. But the thing that sticks out here, you know, is we didn't shoot the ball well at all, frankly. But the way we were able to rebound the ball and kind of get some of those gritty second chance buckets, things of that nature, those are how you win games when you're not shooting well. So it was nice to see that we are capable of doing that. Something that we kind of struggled with off and on. To me, it seemed like last year where if we didn't shoot well, we didn't win a game. So it's nice to see that we're able to do that when the timing necessitates it. But we'll kind of keep seeing how this team shakes out. I think there's still a lot of growing to do, and we'll cover that in a minute.
Yeah, like Seth said, a lot of growing for this team to continue to progress, to be where they need to be by tournament time. You know, the following day, next round of this battle for Atlantis, Arkansas took on Memphis, where they fell in this game 84-79. So a close game that Arkansas was in it right up until the very end of this game. Leading scorers were Khalif Battle with 21 points, followed by Devo with 15, and Trevor Brazil with 13. You had leading rebounders for Arkansas with Trevor Brazil with 10, followed by Devo Davis, Layden Blocker, and Chandler Lawson, all with 3 rebounds each. In this game, Arkansas shot 47.3% from the field, going 26 of 55, 38.9% from the three-point range, going 7 of 18. So a little bit better, back to what we've kind of been used to this team doing. And then 74.1% from the free throw line, going 20 of 27. So it's one of those games where I think the key in this game and kind of what helped Arkansas or went against Arkansas in this loss was 3 technicals called on Arkansas in this game, one on Devo Davis, one on Trevor Brazil, and then one on Layden Blocker. And, you know, that tallied up to nearly five points there off those free throws that they got. And, you know, you take those 5 points away, that's a very close game that Arkansas could have potentially won to move on to the finals for this battle for Atlantis, but didn't necessarily work out that way.
Yeah, I agree with that. But this is another one of those things. I hate to say everything's a dang learning moment, but it kind of is, where you lose a game due to some of your actions in the game, you know, in a sense. I didn't agree with some of the technicals, frankly, but that happens from time to time, and you got to roll with it and find a way to win a game nonetheless. So we also missed some free throws here that kind of came back to hurt us. Didn't shoot quite as well from the stripe as we did in the previous game. So that came back to bite us a little bit. 7 missed free throws is quite a few. So could have cleaned a few things up there. Could have cleaned a few things up from our attitude issues, if you want to call them that. And then boom, this game's a little bit different story. But overall, thought we matched up well. Just not quite enough shots fell, and not quite enough things went our way.
Yeah. And then as we round out the Bahamas, as Arkansas took on North Carolina for the third place game, they fell in this game 87-72. Not as close of a game here, where not a fantastic shooting game for Arkansas in this one, where you had leading scorers Tremont Mark with 34 points, you know, headed towards a career day before, you know, unfortunately in this game he had to leave the game right at the end of the game due to taking a hard fall to his back. They stretchered him off. You know, we'll hit on that in a minute. And then you had Layden Blocker with 11 points, and then Khalif Battle and Jeremiah Davenport with 9 points each. So not a lot of scoring going on other than Tremont Mark's 34. Leading rebounders for Arkansas, once again, Tremont Mark with 5, followed by Khalif Battle with 4, and Lawson with 3. Arkansas shot the ball in this game 47.3% from the field, going 26 of 55. 29.4% from the three-point range, going 5 of 17. And then 75% from the free throw line, going 15 of 20. So we'd like to see those percentages a little bit better, but the big thing for this game was we were playing a lot of ISO ball with not sharing the rock. And so Tremont Mark was really willing this team and keeping us in this game. Like we said, at the end of this game, he took a hard fall to his back, had to be stretchered off. Not something you want to see, but he had MRIs done down in the Bahamas. No structural or significant damage to his back. He was able to fly out with the team and be back with Arkansas. Not sure about his availability against Duke coming up this week, so we'll keep an eye on that. But reports with it being no significant damage, that's good sign. Hopefully, it's probably just a lot of soreness right now. So, however he can deal with that will probably depend on how quickly he can get back here.
Yeah, that's pretty true. It's a tough game. I think we just got out rebounded pretty substantially. Turnovers were a little bit of an issue. There was a lot of intangibles that we just didn't play as well. Our percentages from shooting the ball weren't just horrible, but we just didn't get as many shots. But kind of flushed that one and learn from it and move on. Got a lot of season left. I think everybody's, too many people are pressing the panic button. A lot of people understand too that this is kind of the Musselman way, that you're going to have some struggles early on trying to figure out where everybody fits together. I thought we were a little farther ahead earlier on in the year than maybe we actually are. Playing a little bit tougher talent now is kind of showcasing some of our weaknesses, but that's a good thing that you're finding those early and you're able to correct those. That's exactly how Musselman likes to coach. There's already been reports of him personally doing a lot of the game film prep to give to the players and stuff. So you can tell he's taken these losses personally. In a sense, I've seen reports, kind of verbatim stating that this is not something that he takes lightly, and he is the coach to correct issues, and he's one of the best at doing it. We've seen it the last 3 years. This is nothing new. It's definitely nothing to panic about at this point in the year. I think if we go, deep into conference play and are still struggling, then yeah, maybe this wasn't the year everybody anticipated. But there is a lot of time for this offense. The defense as well. I don't think we played defense as well as we should have so far this year. There's a lot of time to get a lot of things corrected, and I think we'll get there. I really do. They're just trying to figure out kind of where everybody fits together.
Yeah, Musselman is one of the best coaches as far as making those adjustments, whether it be in-game at halftime or, from one game to the next. He really can hone in on what we need to fix and really get it fixed in practice. Hopefully with the way these things went in the Bahamas, I think there's already been said that we had a nice weighted vest and bricks practice to kind of open these guys' eyes a little bit and be like, hey, yeah, we beat Purdue in an exhibition game and started out the season pretty good, but we've still got a long way to go, and you need to realize that we've got to put in some more work. And so hopefully this team will be ready for a tough shot from Duke as they're coming to Bud Walton, at 30-year anniversary of the national championship Arkansas team that beat Duke. So it's going to be a historical matchup, but also, against two teams that Arkansas should still be a top 25 team, even though they've fallen out of the rankings. They're still a very talented team that if they can come to play that home court advantage that you have at Bud Walton when it's rocking, they could get a good big win here against the Duke Blue Devils.
Be awesome. It'd be about like Arkansas to lose a couple games you shouldn't, and then boom, turn around and knock off a huge, very, very good Duke team.
Very true. And so as we jump over to Arkansas women's basketball, they had a tournament of their own as they were played in the Fort Myers tip-off tournament, where Arkansas women's basketball took on Wisconsin on November 24th and got the win there 65-62. So this team is they're learning and they're winning these close games, and you love to see that. Leading scorer was Michaela Daniels with 22 points, followed by Talia Scott with 18 and Samara Spencer with 13. Leading rebounder for Arkansas was Miriam Dowda with 11. Sailor Poffenbarger follows that up with 10, and Michaela Daniels rounds that out with 8 rebounds. In this game, Arkansas shot 30% from the field, going 21 of 70. They shot 29.3% from the three-point range, going 12 of 41. And 55% from the free throw line, going 11 of 20. You'd like to see that a little bit higher percentage there, but this team is learning to win these close games. And like Seth mentioned about one of the games earlier, this team is really learning how to spread out the game, as you don't see like Talia Scott dropping and doing all the work here. You've got Michaela Daniels scoring here, Talia Scott scoring, Smart Spencer in double digits. So this team's starting to play around as a team and spreading out the scoring instead of one person doing it all.
Yeah, and you see that too with the amount of threes that they hit. They shot a lot with 41 takes, but they made 12 of them, and making 12 threes is a substantial amount of points. It definitely made up for the fact that we missed a lot of free throws. So this game dang near could have been a blowout if you don't miss 9 free throws. So close win, but probably should have been a bigger win than it was. But it's nice to be able to hit threes when you need them sometimes, even if you got to shoot a bunch. That 29% clip isn't just the worst. So pretty good offensive output.
Yeah. And then as you jump over to the next round of that tournament, Arkansas women's basketball took on Marquette on the 25th, where they lost this one 74-58. So really, they met a team that's going to be a pretty good team this year. The leading scorer for Arkansas was Talia Scott with 21 points, followed by Sailor Poffenbarger with 13, and Samar Spencer with 8. Leading rebounder for Arkansas was Sailor Poffenbarger with 7, followed by Michaela Daniels with 5 and Miriam Dowdle with 4. In this game, Arkansas shot 33.3% from the field goal, 18 of 54, 37% from the three-point range, so 10 of 27. So shooting a lot better from three there. And then 80% from the free throw line, going 12 of 15. So what really hurt you here in this game was that percentage from the field, only shooting 33%. You'd like to see that around 40, that 40 mark. But overall, this team is doing pretty good with one loss on the season so far.
Very true. Very true.
And so as we hit this week and have the ACC SEC Challenge, you have Arkansas, like we mentioned, taking on Duke, coming to Fayetteville. Get out there, be at this game. It's going to be – Bud's going to be rocking. This is going to be a fantastic environment. That's what just what this team needs. They can bounce back in a big way and get a big win here. And like Seth mentioned, Muss is going to have this team ready with just the sheer amount of film he watched. I believe that quote was like he said he had watched the most film he ever had in a 24-hour period trying to prep for this game, because he didn't like those losses in the Bahamas. He knows this team is better than what they've had in these losses. And so I really think that he's really trying to game plan and get these guys, and hey, we got the talent, but we can be beat. So we really need to get back on our A game. And hopefully they come out fired up and ready to go. Maybe we have Tremont Mark, maybe we don't. It'll be interesting to see his game planning if we don't have Mark. If I had to say right now, I would lean against not, just with such a hard fall and the precautions that were taken. You might want to give him a game or two off. Who knows? Maybe he came back ready to go, didn't have a ton of soreness, and especially after the break to kind of get some rest there. And then your women take on Florida State as part of that ACC SEC Challenge, and those will be going on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. And so as we jump down to Arkansas volleyball news, Arkansas volleyball took on Kentucky at home on the 22nd, where they lost, unfortunately, 3-0. Followed that up with a bounce-back win on the road at Auburn on November 24th, winning 3-2. And so with that ended the season, and Arkansas was selected as a number 3 seed in the NCAA tournament and will host on their side of the bracket. And they will take on Stephen F. Austin on December 1st at 7 p.m. for the first match of the NCAA tournament for them. And on another note, more postseason awards for Arkansas coaches, as Arkansas volleyball head coach Jason Watson was named SEC Co-Coach of the Year. Yet again, those co's, we can't get nothing just for Arkansas's own individual self, but you love seeing these Arkansas coaches recognized, whatever sport it may be. And I think that just shows you what kind of job and what kind of athletic program Yurichek's really built here. Sure, maybe he didn't hire all of these coaches, but the way he's been able to maintain and run this athletic program. And yeah, we struggled in football this year. That's not end all be all. You look at the state of all the rest of the sports in the Arkansas program, softball, baseball, always consistently doing pretty well. Deifel's got softball in a fantastic position. Musselman's got basketball in a fantastic spot now. And I mean, yeah, we have a down year in football, but I think it's a realization that Arkansas is playing football in the SEC with the likes of Alabama and Georgia, so you can't expect to have big wins every year. But I will be the first to say that we should have won more than the games we did this year. We were 1 point losses in several games, not 1 point, 1 possession losses in several games this year. Or if you have just a little bit better offensive line and more discipline there, you win 1 to 2 more games, maybe 3, and your season's looking a little bit different, and your outlook there is a lot better than what it is at the moment.
Yeah, that's pretty dang true. We talked about it a little bit before the show, but season could have come as a blessing in disguise, considering we get Petrino back. Only time will tell. I mean, if we're able to have some bounce backs next year and win a lot more games, or even just a few more games, and then him, be able to build an offensive regime like he used to have here, or even a semblance of it. If you match that with a top 50 defense, kind of how we've had this year, that's a recipe for winning games. And I think he will bring a lot of extra head coaching experience that is kind of, it'll be helpful for Sam, frankly. I think that's really the best way to put that. But so, I mean, yeah, losing a lot of the games that we did this year hurt. And there's definitely games that we lost that we shouldn't have, that were some of it playing issues, with obviously our offensive line. Some of it was coaching issues, not being prepared, just, not knowing to do in what certain situations that kind of cost us a couple games, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, we could be looking back and be glad that we had to let go of Enos after that Mississippi State game and see who brought us in. You never know. I mean, a couple of years from now, Petrino might be sitting pretty high on the hog, as they say, and us have a couple of good years back to back. And that might not happen. You never know. It is Arkansas football, and it seems like it's always a toss-up. But it is kind of nice to have somebody back that you do know can adapt to players' abilities and things of that nature, and that has had success in the SEC before. And I mean, realistically, I didn't think he was doing just a horrible job at A&M, and he didn't even have full reins there, frankly. So
I was about to say, he's doing what he could with a third-string quarterback.
Yes, plus I think Jimbo probably had him handicapped to an extent, because Jimbo was a very controlling type of coach on the offensive side of things, calling plays for years and years, So anyways, I'm excited to see what Petrino's able to come in and do. I'm sure Sam's going to kind of let him have quite a bit of free reign. That's what he did with Browse and what he did with Dan Enos. So I can't imagine this being much different. And I think that bodes well for Petrino. So I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful, which, it leads to heartbreak a lot of the times. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see where things shake out.
Very true. So we'll wrap up with some upcoming events. As like we mentioned, Arkansas is taking on Duke Wednesday at 8:15 on the 29th. So a late tip off in this SEC ACC Challenge. Your Arkansas women's basketball taking on Florida State on the road at 6 p.m. on the 30th. You have Arkansas volleyball taking on Stephen F. Austin at 7 p.m. in that first round of the NCAA tournaments on December 1st. Arkansas women's basketball will be back in action versus number 2 UCLA at 2 p.m. on December 3rd. So that'll be a great test for this women's team, as, number 2 in the country, coming to Bud Walton. It'll be an interesting matchup, to say the least, to see what this team can compare and see how they stack up against one of the top 5 teams in the country. And then Arkansas men's basketball will be taking on Furman at 7 p.m. on December 4th, kind of figuring out the rest of non-conference play before we get into SEC basketball in January. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Go check us out on YouTube. Like and subscribe us there for all the Arkansas content that we'll put out. And thank you for listening to today's episode of Woo Pig Weekly, and we'll be right back here next week.